workshops since I've been teaching workshops since 1979 and leading groups to Cuba since 2001, longer than anyone else. My next workshop to Cuba is in 2 weeks. Now, I noticed in the invitation from PPF that tonight's theme is something old and something new. And by the way, I enjoyed looking at everybody's work, getting an idea of what everybody out there does. There's some very fine work that I saw tonight. But in keeping with the theme, I'm going to show several different genres of my work. And for each genre, I will begin with early work made with film before the turn of the century and finish with current images that may be either film or digital, as I still work with both. So something old, something new. Now, one of the genres that I'm going to show is fine art nudes. Now, if you'd rather not be exposed to nude images, I will give you a heads up and you can take a break for a few minutes. Now, before I begin, I'd like to say a few things too to the whole group. The first is that art, and that includes photography, can express anything a person can think, feel, or experience. Art can elicit both a tear and a smile. It's up to the individual artist to guide the viewer to what they want them to feel. Photography is the voice of the photographer. Through it, we are able to express who we are and how we feel about the world and our place in it. The more mature the artist, the easier it is to understand what they are trying to say. And finally, all photography is autobiographical. Whether it is created with a DSLR or a cell phone, we could not have recorded a place and time had we not been there to do so. And that is what we were doing on that day in our life. After all, it is not how long we live, it's how many sunsets we have seen, or sunrises if you're an early bird. With that, I'm going to see if I can share my screen without crashing the internet. Let's give it a try here. Give me a second, and I'll see if I can do this.
Steve, since I was slow on the draw and recording, why don't you tell us who you are again real fast?
Okay. You want me to start over from the beginning? Hold on just a minute. You're muted, Mark. Mark?
Yep. So
no,
just tell us who you are. So just tell us who you are, just in case somebody watches this video later. You don't have to start from the beginning.
Okay, I will say that. I will do that again. And that is this. I've done everything. Let's see. I have done just about everything there is to do in photography, except for underwater photography, because I don't want fish nibbling on my feet. I've done aerial photography, weddings and portraiture, architecture, fashion, and glamour. But I said that I'm probably best known for my first book, The Darkroom Cookbook, which was published in 1994, and that I have 4 other books on photography, 2 on darkroom and 2 on digital. I've been teaching workshops since 1979 and leading groups to Cuba since 2001. My next workshop to Cuba is in 2 weeks. And that is what I have to say about who I am. The rest of the night, I talk about what I'm going to show tonight. Do you want me to do that, or is that enough?
Yep, you go for it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're already sharing the screen. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So let's start with that image. I'm going to begin with my early work. As I already said, anything that is old in this presentation was made on film before the turn of the century, and anything that is new was made after the turn of the century and maybe on either film or digital. So something old. This first image, coffee grinder, was made around 1974 using a 4x5 Crown graphic press camera. It's the first fine art image I ever sold, and I sold it for $25 to the guy who owned the coffee grinder, by the way. And then we have this one, seaweed, taken on Santa Monica Beach in 1974 also. We have icicles, Independence Pass, 1970s in Colorado, 1977. And by the way, everything I'm showing here, no, the first images up to Mono Lake were done on large format. This is the Pan Pacific Auditorium in Los Angeles, about 1972. The Santa Anita Racetrack in Los Angeles. Hop Sing Tong in Chinatown. Excuse me just for a minute. I just Sorry. Excuse me. I just skipped something there. Okay, Hop Sing Tong. Sorry, in Chinatown in Los Angeles. Mono Lake in California, 1979. And then we move away from large format, and we have Laguna Pueblo, New Mexico. The Bixby Bridge in Big Sur, California. And Highway 70 in Utah. Okay, let's look at something new. All the work has been made with all the work I'm showing here has been made in the last 5 years. This is called the Labyrinth, and in the Zen Garden in Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. Earthships, Taos, New Mexico. Poas Volcano. This was made on a workshop in Costa Rica that I led a few years ago, right after COVID let up. This is Thor's Well. I saw some other pictures on the something new of this area of Thor's Well, and this is an image of mine from that area. Hesseta Lighthouse, Oregon. Cannon Beach from the overlooking the beach to the north of Cannon Beach, and the sunrise. And here's another one of Cannon Beach from the beach, also a sunrise. Now, when I can, I like to work with atmosphere. This is Cape Lookout in Oregon, where you see the mist and the fog in the background. Trees, Highway 22, Oregon. And finally, Kiva and Sunbeam in New Mexico. And as I said, art can express anything, even whimsy. So here's a sunset at Cannon Beach. That's a little more whimsical. By the way, Rita was with me. She was photographing just down the beach when I did this on a Oregon coastal workshop. The next genre I would like to share is work made using a toy camera. Bill Brandt was Ansel Adams' favorite photographer. Brandt was quoted as having said, "Surely it is a result that counts, no matter how it is achieved. A photographer can even become a prisoner of his own rules. Unless he invents new ones, he will soon copy himself, and his work will become sterile and repetitive." And by the way, Brandt was talking in a day when we didn't have his, her, she, him, and all kind of that kind of stuff. There were no, he was a he, and he talked in the male terms. So he said himself and his own rules, but you can put it in modern context for yourself. When I came across this quote, I've been using large format view cameras for most of my fine art photography, including street photography. In 1983, I began to take Bill Brandt's words to heart and purchased a plastic toy camera from Hollywood Toys for $3.99. I took it with me to a nude workshop that I was leading that year, and this image was on the first roll out of the camera. So, something old. I call this the weight. I took the next year with the same camera, and I call it White Palm. Now, when I returned from the nude workshop, I used the camera to photograph street fairs. The following images were from more than one street fair, but using the same camera. Toy cameras are prone to light leaks, but I like the serendipity of the leaks. This one is called Red Ride. This one is called Wild Ride. These aren't very original names. This one is called Tilt-A-Whirl. And this one is called Sky Ride. Now, since then, I've tried to keep myself open to new ways of creating images. I feel that every innovation, whether it's digital or otherwise, is a new opportunity to create and remain fresh. In the following 4 images, I combine camera movement during capture with further enhancement in Photoshop. I call this body of work Jazz in Motion. Images like this, by the way, are created just by playing with your camera and your software tools. There are no rules. You find something you like, then you go with it. The next genre I'd like to share is fine art nudes. And now is the time, if you're offended by nudity, is to take a break and refresh your drink. Okay? Everybody that's going to go should have gone by now. So this first image is of Edna Bullock and myself. I met Edna in 1979, 4 years after her husband, photographer Win Bullock, quite influential photographer, West Coast photographer, friend of Ansel Adams and Edward Weston. Win passed away from cancer in 1975. In 1981, I invited Edna to co-instruct my workshop, The Nude at Big Sur. This photo was made by our assistant, Randall Lamb. So now let's have a look at something old. Calypso. Persephone. Diana's bow. You may notice I have a predilection to name my images after Greek mythology. Mishi at Henry Miller's. Adam and Lilith. Id #1. Deborah at Vinegar Creek. So now let's look at something new. These next images were made within the last 5 years in Cuba during my Havana nude workshop, which takes place each December. This is Claudia at the bathhouse. The glance. Maylette. Oh, that's out of order. That's Camilla on the Azotea. That's an homage, by the way, to Edward Weston's Tina Modotti on the Azotea. Apex. Silence. Untitled. In the artist studio. And speaking of whimsy, the writer. All right. Anybody out there can come? You can come back now. I hope that's not everybody. Anyway, let's look at some street photography. My first street photographs were made in Los Angeles using a large format camera. I saw myself working in the mode of early photographers. This photo of me was made by a student during a street photography workshop I taught for the University of Cincinnati in 1984. I had already begun using a Leica M3 rangefinder by this time. I was still photographing and teaching street photography using an Agfa Ansco 8x10-inch view camera. Now here I'm seen using a 5x7 reducing back. Let's look at something old. This photo was made using that same camera on the workshop in Cincinnati with a 5x7 reducing back. This was Zudis Candy Maker. This was taken in 1984. The next one was in Los Angeles, Mr. Mayor, Fairfax Fine Foods. Then there's the Monster Show in Los Angeles. I do have a predilection for street fairs. Then there's Vampires on Sunset. And finally, Toot Horn in Chamayo, New Mexico. Now, in 1980, I began working with a Nikon F Photomic. I found that it was too hard to control shutter shake in low light, and so moved quickly to using a Leica M3. And I never used a meter with the M3. But this first image, Ride to Live, was made with the Nikon F at night on Hollywood Boulevard. And the second image I'm going to show you was taken on my first night using the M3. Also, that's Hollywood Boulevard at the end of this alley, by the way. So it's a similar area. Now, so the right to live in alley cops, and then we have Cafe Madrid in Spain. Cafe Madrid 2 a.m. is what it's called in Spain. Jeff D's Pool Hall down in Compton, California. Batman and Robin in New York City. In case you're wondering, they didn't know each other. Robin is checking out Batman there. Dante's Cafe, the Village in New York City. That's a drive-by photograph, a walk-by photograph, I should say. At night, The Conversation. And finally, Chinatown in New York City. So let's look at something new in street photography. This was taken the last 5 years. All of these were taken on my workshops I led in France within the last 5 years. Outdoor Cafe, Orléans, France. Puppy Love, Avignon, France. Carrie and Alyssa, Saint-Baume, France. Father and Son, taken in the Javal district of France, Paris, France. And finally, Giton at Café Van Gogh in Arles, France. Okay, in 2001, I began leading workshops at Cuba. In fact, my next workshop is in 2 weeks. I don't know if I mentioned that already. On my first visit, I took this photograph of Augustine, who's remained my friend ever since. Let's look at a few others. Lazaro in Santiago de Cuba. Capital at Night. This particular image won an award, a first place award in a competition. Man on Bus in Havana. Girl Watching in Trinidad. 304 O'Reilly in Havana. Lazarito, he's an artist this is his home, an artist in his home there. Those TVs on the wall are part of his art. And then Bartender in Havana. Now, since my toy camera days, I'm always willing to try something new or different. On my last trip to Cuba, I worked exclusively in the entire workshop with an iPhone 14 Pro. And by the way, I noticed quite a few of the pictures on the members show were made with an iPhone. So these next 3 images, this was the first one, were made using the iPhone. And finally, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite Cuban pictures, the Ice Cream Man Cometh. Sorry, I find that funny. Before I finish, I would like to say to you that if you're on this call, it is because you have found photography to be a means to express your creative spirit. We all grow old, but creativity is the way in which we keep our spirit young. Find time. I encourage you to find time to nurture your creative spirit. Create opportunities for yourself to create. Take your camera for a weekend walk with friends from PPF. Take a workshop once a year. You'll experience new places, make new friends, and share your experience with photographers of like mind. Time only moves in one direction. Take advantage of every opportunity to expand your creativity. Now, we still have a few minutes left, and so I will end my presentation with this thought, after which I will be available for questions. Let me go here and go here.
You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you. On that you can rely. no matter what the future brings as time goes by. Moonlight and love songs never out of date, hearts full of passion, jealousy and hate. Woman need man, and man must have his mate, that no one can deny.
And that's what I have to show you tonight. Anybody, if anybody has any questions, now would be the time to do it. Thank
Thanks,
you,
that was
Rita.
that was really great. Who's got questions? I'm sure there are plenty of them.
Well,
I would just make one remark, Steve. If you had not said old or new, I found that the black and white images were transcendent. Of course, there were some dated pieces, but for the most part, black and white erased in your images anyway, sort of the gulf between old and new. And I've never noticed that when I've seen your work before. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rita. I appreciate that. And that observation. That's very kind to say, for you to say that. I am very much in love with my old work. I don't have many, there aren't many venues for it anymore, but I have, yeah, my office here is in my garage, and the garage is right next door. In the garage, I have shelves and shelves of about several hundred thousand, a couple hundred thousand. No, that's not exaggerated. Probably over 100,000 black and white negatives in archival storage. I probably printed about 200 of them in my lifetime, and you saw a few tonight.
Are you scanning any of those these days and going back
I
and
don't
looking at
have.
them?
Well, what you saw are the ones I've managed to scan so far. I have a great scanner right here on this table, an Epson 750. I just don't have time to do it. I just don't. Between teaching workshops, I'm writing the 5th edition of the Darkroom Cookbook right now. I'm getting ready in 2 weeks to go to Cuba. I come back. I have a workshop in Mexico 2 weeks later. I come back. I teach large format in Montana. If you have time, Walt, want to come, Mark, and want to come down and do some scanning, I'll let you use my computer. You don't have to bring a laptop.
Still got to scan my own.
Yeah.
But I'll keep that offer in mind.
I remember Arnold Newman was a friend. Arnold Newman was a photographer who photographed every president from Eisenhower. Clinton was the last president I think he photographed. He didn't photograph Bush Jr. And that's because he didn't want to. He didn't like his politics. I'm not going to go there, but he did like his politics, and he wouldn't photograph him. And he died. And then he died. But Arnold Newman, he was the official photographer. But anyway, the thing about Arnold, he really knew what he was doing. He had interns from the I don't remember, some Parsons or something come and work for free, and they would scan all his negatives at their internship. And in return, they could say they had interned from Arnold Newman. That was basically their pay. He usually gave them lunch money and stuff like that, but he wasn't required to pay them anything. The university arranged all that. But
still sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
Anybody else with questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Giannis, and Steve, you're still a very, very young man, and it kind of triggered my mind when you said that you had 100,000 negatives that are out there. What do you think about, like when you pass on, like what's going to happen? What are you doing with your negatives and your work?
That's a good question, Janice, and it doesn't often get asked, but it's one that I've given a lot of thought to. Yes, I would love to have my work in archives, and right now I've got many people who've collected my work over the years. It's in a few museums. I have work in the Jimmy Carter library in Atlanta, Georgia, for example. But I don't have no illusions. I'm not, I'm not a famous photographer on the level of Ansel Adams or Win Bullock. My work is collected because people like it. Brett Weston, who was also a friend of mine, used to like to say that he would rather have 6 people buy his work, who appreciated what he was doing and understood it, than to have 1,000 people buy it because somebody in a gallery said it was the latest hottest thing. I feel this kind of the same way about that. But you asked me what when I pass away. Well, I have no illusions again. I'm not even on the level of Brett Weston, which is quite a high level, but that's another story. I didn't mean to say that way. But my work, I'll show when I'm alive. I'll show my work where I can, when I can. That's why I said to you, and I meant it. I was honored to be able to show it to you photographers on this club because I know you will appreciate it and maybe get something out of it and some inspiration. That's what I do with it. When I die, I'm leaving my home to my niece and my nephew. I expect they'll come and get a dumpster and throw it all in the trash. I mean, and again, unless Mark wants to take over and scan it and get it in the Arizona University of Arizona archives. Thank you, Mark. We'll talk about it later.
That's right. I'll be right there tomorrow.
I have no illusions. I do my work. I photograph for myself. I photograph to remember. I look at a photograph of the taken in 1974 of that coffee grinder, and I can remember the guy who owned the coffee shop that was on his counter. His name was Steve. He was like he dressed and acted. He was like a bohemian from the 50s. He had the whole, and it really was a wonderful guy. He was blonde hair, or toe-headed, I guess they call it. I can still see him, and I see it when I look at that photograph. I photograph to remember. And as I say, all photography is autobiographical. So these are my photographs. They're for me. And okay, as long as you ask Janice, they're all up for sale. Yeah, let me know which one you want, and I'll have a print made. Anyway, good question though. I mean, people want to know, what do I do with my negatives when I die? Well, that's what you do with them. Unless you
We have a few more
yourself
minutes left.
up.
If anybody else has questions, didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve.
That's fine. I just go on and on.
Well, that's okay. You got a few minutes. You're welcome to do that.
Well, you realize I'm a pedagogue by nature. You put me up in in front of a group of people, I can talk for 3 hours. I used to teach at OSU, and I have a lecture on the history of photography. It's in 2 parts. And I bought a popcorn machine, those kinds that you have at the carnivals. I bought it at Walmart for about $100, and I took it there. I said, listen, if you guys have to listen to this lecture, at least you can have popcorn with it. And I brought Twizzles, those licorice red and the black ones, and I put it out in the can. You guys help yourself, and get up and walk around while I'm talking. And I do the slideshow. Of course, there'd be a test on the slideshow, so they had to watch some of it. But that's how boring it can. How bad I am as a pedagogue. Not boring, but how bad it can be. So if you want to get started.
Can I interrupt you with another question?
Yes, Janice.
Okay, so when you're doing the street photography, like, are you like a steal and run, or are you, tell me what your method of operation is.
There are many methods to street photography. Your Gary Winogrand was what you call a steal and run, and he was very famous for it. Just walk by with his camera and snap photos as he's walking, not even worried not even looking at the. I've done that. I can. In fact, I have worked like that. I tend to, for me, street photography, why I like it so much is engaging the people I photograph. I will walk up to them. If I walk up to somebody, they're doing something interesting, I might snap that photo because I know I'll lose the moment. But the moment I do it and they see me, I walk up, I shake their hands and say, that was wonderful. Thank you for letting me take your picture. Do you mind if I take some more of you? And I'll engage them in a conversation. I get Augustine. I showed you that picture of Augustine smoking the cigar in 2001 at Cuba. And I walked in a Cuban club at 10 o'clock at night, and there's nobody there but Cubans. And he was sitting there and smoking, and I don't speak Spanish. And I showed him my camera, pointed, I said, and he said, and then I said, without talking, he went and blew that. That was the 5th photo. I went like this, thank you. And I started to walk to the bar to get a beer. And he said, can I buy that beer for you? In perfect English. Every time I go to Cuba, he and I have dinner together. And you know, and I bring him things. I brought him a TV. He needed a TV, things like that. But that's I make friends that way. I've got friends all over the world, in France and Cuba and other places I've been through photography. The engagement is what it's all about to me. Just taking a photo, be taking a photo, or if somebody doesn't want their photo taken, there's nobody that is that important for me to photograph. That if they don't want their photo taken, I'll take it. Or if I take it, they say delete it, I delete it. I don't care. They're
Steve,
not going to make me famous, so I just delete the darn thing.
follow-on question, Steve.
Yes, sir.
On street photography, do you ever get releases? You haven't signed?
I do not. I do not. It's not my style. It's not what I do. If I were doing this for magazine work, it depends on the magazine work, really. If it's like newsworthy, you have to have a release. You don't have to have a release. Wait a minute. If it's newsworthy, you don't have to have a release. For example, if you photograph somebody during the 9/11 and it's a newsworthy, you don't have to have a release. But if it's just something you're walking down the street like I do, to get that published, yeah, you got to have a release. So if I were selling this work for publication, you would need a release. Now, to show it in a gallery, no, nobody cares. I have had some galleries say they do, but it's the law, the code is, which is decided mainly for this country, New York City, says no, for a gallery, you don't need a release. But if you want to take that same photo and publish it, then you do. Now, there's a difference. If you're publishing if there's a story about you and your photography and you're showing this photo as an example, you don't need a release. But if you're doing a story about an article or not, if you're trying to sell my street photography workshop and I'm publishing it, like, you know, so it gets complicated. So what I do for what I do, which is photography for me, no. And remember, I made my living as a commercial photographer for most of my life, and then teaching for OSU for 5 years. And so I don't need to sell these photos to pay my mortgage. Now, if I did, that's another matter. And I would, in which case, usually the best thing is to take somebody with you and have them collect the releases. I've overstepped my time, right?
No, you're doing fine. Thanks for sharing your photos and your philosophy. I think both are just as important.
You're welcome, Mark. And I hope to see all of you guys again soon. I have a monthly Zoom meeting where I do a critique of everybody's work. Rita's on it every month. Pat Rose has been on it. If you'd like to join, just go to my website, steveanchell.com, and sign up, and I'll send you a notice about it on my newsletter, which comes out once a month. So,
all right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next member who's going to do a half-hour presentation, and that is Bruce Leonard.
There we go. Hi there. Well, my presentation is not as formal, and I don't know if it'll be a half hour, but I was asked to show some pictures of some recent travel and experiences that I had. So let me see if I can figure this out. That's not what I want.
So are you seeing the share screen with all the different options?
Am I not sharing my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, try it again.
So when you hit share, it shows you different things that you can share.
Oh, I see. I get it. Share.
There you go. Hold on, we're waiting. There you are.
So how do I get to full screen on this now?
Hit your F key. Click on Lightroom and hit your F.
Happening.
Well, click on Lightroom first. So
there we go. Full screen?
Yep.
Okay. So I had a recent, well, this was actually last fall, photo tour up to Lake Clark National Park, which is up in Alaska, obviously. And it's a fantastic, huge wilderness area. It was created a national park. It was the last act of Jimmy Carter, interestingly. So this gives you a slight idea. There's Anchorage up in the top right corner. And then we flew down to Lake Clark National Park. And from there, when you This is the little plane route we took in a small plane that looks like that. Kind of a fun, exciting thing. If you've never been on a tiny little plane, that's the way Alaskans get around pretty much. There's no other way to get to that area other than by plane or boat. The pilot there is putting our luggage in. It's that little compartment underneath the plane. We're only allowed 50 pounds of luggage each for clothes and cameras and everything you want to take. So didn't take a lot of changes of clothes, obviously. If anybody has any questions along the way, feel free to ask. I don't have a formal presentation, so and I feel like I'm talking to myself here.
I
This
have a
is what it
question.
looks
Did
like
you,
inside the
since you only
plane.
had, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Since you were limited to 50 pounds, did you have to leave some camera gear at home that you wanted to bring?
I could have brought more, but as it was, I didn't use a lot of different stuff. But I want to bring a laptop, download things, and I have a Canon R5 and a 100 to 500 lens, and that probably was 90% of what I used. Of course, not having been there before, you want to bring a wide angle and some other things, and it gets pretty chilly there. We're camping out, so it was pretty limited. I spent a lot of time with a scale at home trying to figure this out. This is looking down from the plane on the mud flats. That was kind of interesting.
Bruce, can I ask, was this
Yeah.
like a workshop, or was this like you just went on your own, or how did you arrange this?
I don't know that you could do it on your own. It was he calls it a photo tour. A photographer named Matthew Studebaker organized the group. There was 5 of us and him. And I don't think you could manage to do what we did on your own. So he put it together. He does workshops all over, mostly birds. A lot of the stuff way up north in the Arctic. He lives in Ohio. Young guy, but fantastic photographer. So, yeah. His name's Studebaker. He's actually a descendant of the car people, which I guess originally started making Calistoga wagons. Who knew? This once again is what it looks like down below from the plane. Elevation wasn't that high. And it only went, I was watching the gauges, we're going about 120 miles an hour. So this is as we were coming into, there's a lodge there that we flew to, which is Silver Salmon Lodge. It's the only lodge within the park. And it's kind of been grandfathered in. It's really quite a beautiful place. And this is the airport where we landed. land right on the beach. Kind of amazing. And sometimes they have traffic on the airport.
Baggage handlers.
Yeah, baggage handlers. Glad to take whatever you have. So this is the welcoming committee. We went to the lodge just to have lunch. And these guys were wandering around the lodge. There's a lot of fishermen go to this. And this is a fish cleaning station, so it obviously attracts the bears. They like the smell. So these guys were just walking around. Mother and probably a couple-year-old cub. So from there, we took a boat to a campground. This, I don't know if you can see it there, Shelter Cove Campground. And this is the boat.
Wow.
We all piled onto that. And it was about an hour and a half in the water to get down to the campground, which this is our luxury camp. And it was actually quite nice. There's one guy that was there full time. The camp's only set up for 2 weeks at a time is all they allow. But we did have a guy down there that would, while we were out taking pictures all day, he would go down to the little river you see down there and catch some salmon and come back and fix some food for us, so we didn't have to fuss with that. This is the luxury spa and restroom. And my favorite cartoon. So this is the view from our tent, just magnificently beautiful there. That mountain in the back, and I'm afraid I can't remember the name, but that's a volcano. And did erupt many years back. But the bears, this is a river there, and salmon are coming in to spawn, and the bears are out fishing, and they could care less about the people. So there was just 6 of us down there. So I've got lots of bear pictures. I took about 6,000 the way cameras are nowadays, and I won't show you all of them. But these are some of my favorites. This guy's looking at us like, what are you doing bothering me? But this is how they fish. They get down in the water and they grab the salmon with their mouth as they're coming upstream.
So Bruce, what kind of weather did you encounter? And were
We
you
had
ready?
everything. It had sunny and nice. One day it just rained constantly hard all stinking day. And we just stayed in the tent with a little fire going. And it would just change from minute to minute. Clouds would blow through. It's out on the, you got that Cook Inlet there, and weather just seems to go through really fast. A lot of clouds going on. Did some time lapse. I won't try to show you, but all kinds. Obviously, most of the pictures were taken when the weather was nice. So these are these 2 teenage bears are they're probably 2 or 3 years old, and they just were having a great time. It's like my grandkids.
That's great.
They just love to fight with each other. Here they were going at it. It's like a wrestling match. And if you're wondering if they can move fast, they can go real fast for relatively short distance, but you can't outrun a bear.
Looks like you got good use out of that 100 to 400,
Yeah, 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
Yeah. These are not all at 500 though. These are,
Mhm.
I'm not that far away.
How long were you out there, Bruce?
We camped out there for 3 days, and then we went back to the lodge and we stayed another 3 or 4 days, I think 3 days at the lodge.
And Bruce, what do you wish that you would have brought on this trip?
Well, several of the other people had a big 600 F4, and it's a lot to work with, and you get a nice blurrier background, but the zoom is pretty wonderful. A lot of these pictures are taken at 200 or 300 millimeters, so I don't know. I was quite happy with what I brought.
I think you have the right amount of blur on most of these. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, I was quite pleased with it. And the 600s they're a lot to work with, and I'm getting old and they're heavy. This little guy I thought was going to get washed away. Should have taken a picture of the whole scene, but the mother and the 2 cubs crossed the river. Mom swam right across, and this guy was just getting washed away. By the time he got to the other side, he probably was about 100 feet downstream. She never looked back. So he made it though. Water was moving pretty fast at that time. And here's a couple big ones that were having a good time. None of them were fighting very seriously, but it looks fierce, and I wouldn't want to get in the middle of it. You can see those claws.
Wow.
So if they were really going at it, it would be ugly. I'm sure they could do some
Mhm.
damage. I've been
Are
in
these
other places.
are they adolescents who are just kind of sparring and playing, or?
Yeah, these are teenagers, we call them. They're probably about 3 or 4 years old, and it was unusual, but they just started playing and they went at it all day long.
Hey, Bruce, do some of them have collars, tracking collars or something on?
There are a couple that do. I hadn't noticed, but you might see them interspersed
In
in
that,
there.
in that last picture, I noticed one.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
I hadn't noticed. Yeah, they track them. There's more beer. How do they put it? There's more bears, brown bears in the United States. 95% of them are in Alaska than the rest of the United States. But they track them and they keep track. They're very healthy. They're not dying out. They're doing great up there. There's plenty of fish still for them, and they're really not interested in people unless you get in the wrong spot. You know, you don't want to threaten them, but they're doing their own thing. This one's getting body slammed.
Can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. I've had challenges here. I'm sorry. Did you ever feel worried or concerned at all? Or did you ever feel like you were too close?
Yeah, a couple times. I was down low taking a picture. I think I might have it in here. And it started crossing the river right towards me. It got about less than 10 feet away, aiming right towards me.
Oh,
Wasn't charging at me. He was just coming my way, but
Mm.
stood up, you throw your arms out, make a bunch of noise, and he just kind of go, "Oh, I don't care about you," and turned and went the other way. So, but did get too close several times.
Mhm.
The scene here, this sedge grass, they call it, apparently is pretty high in protein, and they eat a lot of that. So they between that, fish and clams, that's pretty much their diet. You can see those clouds up there. They're just moving through all the time.
But you had enough light to get all those fabulous fast speed shots.
Yeah, yeah. Wasn't a problem. Well, these new cameras, you can use plenty of ISO. So this one, I think this is the one, is kind of funny. Or is it the next one? Yeah. So this one, I set up, I was going to do a time lapse. And another guy right next to me, we put our cameras there, and along comes this bear heading right for the cameras. We're going, oh no, don't wreck our cameras. We backed off, and he had mine's a mirrorless, his has a DSLR. And just as the bear got real close, it clicked, and the bear got spooked and he ran off. So the cameras were saved.
You
Yeah,
got
so
6,000 photos. I'm sure it was pretty hard to make the cut.
yeah, I'm only going to show 3,000 tonight. But it was, I was looking for these and I found some others I like. So here's these two cubs. These guys are probably a year old, and they're so stinking cute. The mother was in the neighborhood. They never leave them alone. Sadly, they're the biggest predator for bears is other bears. So the males will kill the cubs. They're pretty nasty. So the mother never leaves them alone. They stay with them for about 3 years, I understand. But these two guys were just pretty darn cute. There's mom. And they're eating that grass. Got to shake off when you get out of the water. When the sun comes out, you can see how beautiful the colors are there.
Mhm.
So we're actually on the coast. This is a beach. It's kind of rocky, but it's a coastal place. That's a river, but that we were looking at before. But this is right down on the ocean, or the Cook Inlet. It's part of the ocean, I believe. And they actually go out into the ocean a little ways and go fishing. Here's where they find the clams, though. So they're eating clams.
Bruce, what kind of temperatures did you have?
It was pretty chilly. I'd say it was probably in the 40s. It was August, which is fall up there. But it wasn't too bad. I was wearing wool long johns. And if you wonder what the claws look like,
Wow.
it actually has 4 legs. You can only see 3 there. One's kind of behind, but yeah, those things could do some damage. One swipe with one of those and it's all over. They're probably 3 or 4 inch long claws. So here they are. You can see the ocean out there. Across the bay or out across the water is Kenai Peninsula. Homer and Sildonoc. I can't remember. So there. So this little guy's running around. It's funny, the cubs, they play a lot. They really do. Portland wrestling here. This one gets the cuteness award.
Certainly does. The texture of the grass against the texture of their fur is really interesting.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Not easy to get to, but it's really something. Here they are, wading out into the ocean. I wouldn't have thought that they would go anywhere near the ocean, but they do. So these are all brown bears. The only difference, grizzlies are also brown bears. The only difference is that the ones called brown bears live on the coast and can get a lot bigger because they have more food. They eat fish and clams and all that. And the grizzlies are inland bears, also brown bears. And they're not nearly as big. These guys range, when they're full grown, 5 or 6 all the way up to 1,000 pounds. So they can get really big. The grizzlies are not as big, but they're not as nice because they don't have as much food. This one was real blonde. Interesting. I think at this point I'm back at the lodge, different area. Yeah, this one's a real blonde bear. Don't know why. And it climbed up into a tree. They say they don't climb trees, but it was taking a nap up there. Just wanted to get away. And this was quite a sighting. This is a wolverine. Very rare to see one. The guide we had up there had been working up there for 40 years, and this is the first time we ever saw one. Very elusive animal. kind of known for being really mean and muscular. They only eat meat, and they attack animals much larger than themselves. So that was a rare sighting. Pretty interesting. They live real solitary animals. They live out in the woods, and you only find them up in Alaska, northern Canada, and Siberia. I can't help myself take pictures of a few birds here. So spruce grouse, very pretty bird. Looks similar to a ptarmigan. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a ptarmigan, but they look kind of like this, but they turn completely white in the winter, match the snow. There's a town up there in Alaska they were going to name ptarmigan, but nobody could spell it, so they named it chicken. And this is a merlin. Flew out of a tree. I caught that. And he caught a dragonfly and is eating a dragonfly.
Wow,
That's
Interesting.
fabulous.
it is.
And this is a peregrine falcon. Swooped down towards us, and I managed to get lucky.
What
It's here
size
for
lens did you say you were using on these?
100 to 500.
That's real nice.
Yeah, that's the fastest bird. And let's hand it to the new technology to be able to capture that.
Mhm. Right.
And this is from our campsite. Bear's just walking into the river. And this is the last one. I just think that's real pretty.
How'd you find out about this trip?
Through a friend of mine. He's been up there before, and he told me about it. And so I gave it a shot. I was really happy with it.
You got some really nice work.
thank
Questions,
you.
anybody?
Yeah, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, when I tried to fly from Juneau to Glacier Bay, we couldn't because of low clouds with the small planes. Was there any concern that you wouldn't be able to get in or out of your campsite?
Yes, there was. When we were leaving, there were clouds the day before, and they couldn't fly. And I hadn't realized that when we started, but yeah, I think they're pretty much visual how they land and all that. So we were able to make it on time both times, but the day before they couldn't get out. To get to that lodge, you can go to the lodge on your own, and they have a group of planes that kind of go all together, and it's kind of slick deal. They'll bring in 10 or 15 people, and at the same time 10 or 15 people are checking out, so they'll get everybody's luggage off the plane, load up the people leaving, and then head back with that group. So but the day before they couldn't get out, so that's when we took that boat back to the lodge, and it was rough.
So Bruce, how much was the tour?
Oh, it was about $6,000, I think.
Yeah, that's not a bad price for that, actually.
Everything included. Yeah.
What time of the year was it, Bruce?
August.
August.
Yeah, I just looked at his website. Doesn't look like he has anything scheduled up there through the end of 2004. So
If he does, it's probably full. If you look at his website, you'll see everything's sold out. So he's a busy guy. He just does very small groups.
That was really wonderful, Bruce. That Wolverine was worth the trip.
Right.
Yeah, I got a few more things to show if I have a little more time.
We have 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick. I didn't think I'd take this long.
Okay.
Another trip I was asked about is up there to the Canadian Rockies. Did this just in January, I think it was. And so this is near south of Banff. And another gorgeous place. I'll be quick. This is a guy ice fishing. Nothing you see around here. There he is. You drill a hole in the ice and sit in that little thing, and I understand a lot of drinking goes on. And these guys are walking around on the road licking the salt off. This is where I stayed, Emerald Lake Lodge, absolutely beautiful place. River running into the Emerald Lake. And this is what I went for, the Bubbles Abraham Lake. It's on the east side of the Rockies, going towards the plains. It's actually a dammed up river, makes a big lake, and the methane from the decomposing vegetation in the lake bubbles up and freezes into the ice. So it's kind of fun. You walk around out on the ice and it's real transparent. So I'll try to be quick here and do this in 5 minutes.
Fascinating.
Yeah, these bubbles, and they change all the time. They slowly seep through somehow. So I was there for several days, and each time you go back, I mean, it's huge. You find different areas, but the bubbles change as well, and the weather changes. If it gets snow on it, this is not bubbles. It's kind of just flaking at the top. Nearby, this is insane. This is a huge cliff covered in ice. If you can see that little black dot, there is a guy climbing it.
Wow.
No
Yeah,
thanks.
there's another guy in the hole there.
Yeah, here's a close up. There are a few guys over here. And if anybody needs a new hobby, this is an area called Bow Lake, just beautiful. And here's at night, it's a little bridge. Here, the wind it's really windy there, and it's created these ripples in the ice, interestingly. I like this little bubble where it's kind of working up there. I've got Orion right over the top of the mountain there. It's late at night. Temperature was about 0 here. It's a little later. Orion moved to the right. This is another area down right near Banff. We just have a few more. This is called Castle Mountain for good reason. It looks like a castle. I imagine you get a reflection of it down there in the water. Interestingly, it's called the Three Sisters. Oh, got a crow, or a raven, excuse me. And this last one, finally, this is what we were trying for. This is the aurora, just starting to peep up. Didn't get going as much as we hoped, but on the lake with the bubbles. So
I'm
that's
glad
all
you
I've got.
showed these. Glad you showed us these extra photos. Some of them are really compelling. I mean, the bear stuff was super interesting, but these are cool also.
Yeah, this is landscape. So
we got time for one more question. If anybody has something they want to ask Bruce.
Bruce, those are magnificent. Just want to
oh my
say.
gosh. Who's talking?
Me, Mike.
Oh, Mike, I haven't seen you forever. Thank you.
Bruce, seems like you like really cold weather.
I seem to be drawn to it. I don't know why, but I did that other thing up in Yellowknife in Northwest Territories. It was 24 below. So, and I just signed up, a friend of mine and I were going to Norway next February. And that should be interesting too. Way above the Arctic Circle. So I don't know why.
Bruce, something to think about is because you do some amazing night photography. That would be a great Sunday school outing.
Yeah, Pat's talked to me about that. The problem is it's so tricky. You have to do it at the right time, and then you have to have the right weather, and you got to be quite a distance from Portland. So I've kind of shied away from it. Maybe if we have to do it on shorter notice, I'm not sure how to organize something like that.
We could probably work something out.
Yeah, I'm sure people would be up for short notice. If you can kind of work out the details, it'd be a lot of fun.
I'll work on it.
Okay, so I'm going to stop your screen share.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
You bet. Thank you.
Really great work. And now we're going to move on to our third and final presenter, Kathy Raddy. Kathy, how do you pronounce your last name? Kathy, I know you're there.
There we go. Rady?
Rady, okay, thank you.
Yeah, Rady. Hello, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and thank you for inviting me. I am so overwhelmed with the beauty of the photographs I've just seen. And it was a really special night for me to see all of those images and the presentation. So thank you. I am here to just give you a little overview of what I am going to present tonight. My work is a short visual narrative of the time I spent in Alaska. So we got another show on Alaska tonight. I lived in Alaska for about 10 years and I've been going back pretty much my whole adult life. It really draws me there. It pulls on my heartstrings. So I love the adventure. I love the people. Some of the smaller towns that I visit, the people there are, it's like going back in time. You feel like you're almost in a time capsule where everything's slow paced. People work really hard. They have unusual jobs. Some of the weather is unpredictable. Sometimes it's the landscape and the people are beautiful, but sometimes it's just so dangerous. Their occupations are dangerous, and it's an exciting place. So I've spent a lot of time photographing there. That's not all I do is Alaska, but I wanted to share tonight with you my experiences over a number of years. Some of my images are done with analog. Some of them are digital. Some of them are large format, small, 35 millimeter to larger formats. And so I've just taken some of my favorite images to present. And you have to bear with me. I hope this is going to work. I had trouble earlier tonight because my computer was overheating and I've never had that happen before. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we're not going to have any problems. So anyway, I'll bring this slideshow on. Oh, I wanted to also tell you that I put them on a timer because I wanted to make sure my time was good. And then I'm just going to let you enjoy them. And then at the end, if you have questions, we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So share your screen.
Yep.
Okay.
Here we go.
And we've got it.
All right.
I'm getting a black screen, Kathy. Anybody else seen a black screen?
Yes, I think we lost Kathy. It looks like she froze.
Yeah, she's frozen. We'll give her time to come
overheat,
back.
Maybe she was talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, we'll give her a chance to come back in. We still have plenty of time.
I will text her to see.
Okay, thank you.
if it's Okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I think she just left.
Oh,
While we're waiting, anybody else have a fun photo trip coming up that they're scheduled for?
I'm going with Steve Anchell to Mexico, May
that'd
1st
be
to
fun.
shoot with about 5 other photographers.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Julie and I were just talking about going to Mexico earlier today. Whereabouts are you going?
Mexico City, Puebla, and 3 other towns. Steve would have to tell us. I'm not
Yeah.
picky. I love traveling with photographers and appreciate the way that people watch each other's back when
Mhm.
maybe you're focused looking through the lens. And I think that's yet another advantage of what Joe is offering PPF with re-energizing the Sunday school. So I hope that serves a lot of people really well.
Yeah, when you travel with non-photographers, those other people don't have a lot of patience. When you're with other photographers, you can move nice and slow and think about what's going on. And I think it's always fun on an outing like a Sunday school for everybody to compare notes and see how other people saw the same things you saw them, because it's usually not the same way.
The creative process is a very solitary thing. With painting, you think about the painter with his easel and canvas, or her easel. Photography is very solitary. And when you spend a day doing that, walking the streets or out in the woods, photographing landscapes, it's nice to be able then to relax with a beer or a Coca-Cola and talk about your day and share your photographs and discuss your work with other photographers.
Mhm.
As you say, people who are non-photographers don't, even if they're patient and or allow you your time, they still don't get it when you want to talk about it. It's not quite the same
Right.
thing.
Okay, Kathy's coming back in. So Kathy, when you're ready, just go ahead and share again. She's connecting to audio right now. All right, looks like you're connected, Kathy. So go ahead and share your screen when you're ready. And it looks like, there you go, you're unmuted.
can you hear me?
Yes. So it looks like you're muted again, Kathy.
We heard you just for a moment, Kathy, and we don't see your screen at this point.
Kathy, are you hearing us?
I think Kathy's probably having technical problems. I'm asking her to unmute.
And maybe if she just wants to talk about her work, she has a
Mhm.
broad range and she might just want to say some things without sharing. I don't-
Absolutely.
Kathy can hear me or not, but that'd be great just to hear her comments about her work.
There we go, Kathy.
No.
Looks like you're unmuted. You there, Kathy?
I can't see. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
This is kind of like the,
Share
what is that
screen.
called? The
No,
Hunger
you
Games?
can't share screen. Do you want to just do the share screen? Yeah.
Yeah, just share your screen again.
There you go.
We got you now. All right, great. I love that
Great.
photo.
Are they listening?
Oh, no. No, they
Yes.
can't.
Yep.
'Cause you're not.
Yes, we can hear you and we see.
Oh,
That was-
boy. Oh, boy. How do you make this bigger? You
It
do
looks
this.
fine.
We
I
can
think
on.
We have
maybe
the-
she doesn't hear us.
I think so. But maybe you can try that text now, Rita.
I did text her and
Okay. All right.
I'm sure she's so flustered
Yeah.
that
Yeah, that's
Let me push on mine so they can hear me.
Yeah, I think she's got her. There you go. It's
Just connect together.
audio. They're watching right now. They can see you. See you. I don't know how to do the speakers.
Really nice work, Kathy. It's easy to see your love of the place. I think you're still muted.
Kathy may have frozen again.
He may have. She was getting pretty close to the end, I think. Well,
Yeah, I think
anybody have any comments about her work? We have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I would just say that, wow, what a slice of life she's witnessed. It's great.
Yeah, it was really nice to see how people live, like those kids, and I'm sure the water was really cold and they're all jumping into it. Somebody else?
Yeah, Kathy, I don't know if you can hear now, but there'll be a recording. So I just wanted to make sure that I got to tell you that I was just blown away. That is such a wonderful retrospective of your time in Alaska. And I was equally enamored with your color and black and white. And you have such a facility for composition. No matter what genre you've chosen, you've showed us quite a variety here, but composition and storytelling skills are just wonderful. I'm so happy I got to see that body of work. I've only seen a few of your images at print share night, all of which are good, but this retrospective of your time in Alaska was a real treat. Thank you.
I feel the same way. I especially, as much as I love the landscapes, there's some gorgeous, gorgeous landscape shots. What I really liked was the Fisher people. It was extremely, made them extremely accessible. You really felt like you were right there with her.
I agree, Johanna.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think she caught the feeling of Alaska, you know, the license plates say the last frontier. And I think she really showed that feeling, and what I love about that place as well. Very nice.
Well, I wish she could have been here to hear all these comments, but hopefully she can watch the recording at the end and hear whatever that everybody really likes the work. I think the storytelling is definitely off the charts. Okay, so we might as well go ahead and wrap things up. Anybody have any final comments or anything they want to say?
I don't know if it's appropriate, but my husband and I are selling our 2018 Airstream 16-foot Sport in mint condition. So I know some of you photographers want to get out there in the wild, and you can take your home with you. So just contact me if you're even slightly interested. I might post something on Facebook just because I want to sell. I love this rig and I just want to sell it to somebody I know, preferably one of my photography buddies. So anyway, quick plug there, even though it's not appropriate, but there you go.
No worries. No worries, Rick.
This was a great evening. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Kathy.
Thanks, Bruce. And I think Steve left, but appreciate seeing all of your work.
And thank you, everybody, for coming to the meeting. I was talking to someone the other day in another group, and they talk about how they can never get people to come to Zoom meetings. We typically get 40 to 50 people at these meetings, and that just shows how interesting the work is and how interested we are in this craft of photography. So I think it's really awesome. Okay, everybody, good night, and hope to see you next month.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.